He will never leave us nor forsake us. I heard Martin Luther, I got a quote from him about, you could sin 1,000 times a day, you could commit adultery, do all this abominable stuff, and you don't have to worry. He's not going to leave you.
Isn't there a concept that I've heard expressed that we should sin with gusto in order to exercise
That's pretty much what
grace?
he said.
I think that's not direct quote. I don't think he
It's
used the word
horrible
gusto,
what he said.
but I've heard it expressed that we should sin. As a matter of fact, I've heard it said that we should exercise our grace by eating every abomination he said not to eat.
No, boy.
Have you heard that one?
I haven't heard that one.
No, I have heard that. That people, one reason for eating ham on Easter, one reason besides the fact that it was a wild boar that killed Tammuz, who was the son of Nimrod. And so the idea of eating ham on Easter was to celebrate.
Just go all the way. Join Hillary and her crew and start drinking adrenochrome.
That thing of adrenochrome literally is cannibalism, eating the babies and the young children.
It's worse than that. To get the adrenal glands pumping. Oh my gosh. This is horrible.
It is, but the concept of saying let's exercise our liberty in Christ by doing everything the Torah said not to do. That is a doctrine of certain, you might call them doctrines or trains of thought or denominational.
You might call them doctrines of demons too.
Well, I'm saying this is real stuff. So certainly not every Christian believes that, but a bunch of them do. Groups of them, bunches of them believe that the way to exercise our liberty in Christ is to intentionally do the opposite of what he instructed in the Torah and to intentionally break the commandments that he imposed on his people Israel. And so I do understand that these things we're talking about is heretical to a lot of believers. These things that we're talking about are
that's even clearly
heresy.
Addressed in the New Testament. 2 Peter, I believe, talks about for promising them freedom, then ends about, if you reject the commands, your first status, it's going to be worse for you in the end than if you'd never even. He sums it up by a dog returning to its vomit.
There's a certain word we're going to get to here. We're going to continue on in Hosea. There's the word het bet shin that means set at liberty. Very similar to shin het resh and very similar to dalet resh vav resh. Free, liberal, set at liberty, let us go. We're gonna jump into looking at Hosea chapter 5 verse 6. It says in Stone's Tanakh here, now let's back up to verse 5. Well, let's just back up to verse 4. So this is Hosea. Hosea is, just so you know, is spelled Hey Vav Shin Ayin. Husha is the way it's really pronounced. And that Shin Ayin is the word that's the root of the word Yeshua, Joshua, or translated Jesus. Husha, Hey Vav Shin Ayin. The Shin Ayin is the word that means to redeem, save, deliver. And Shin Vav Ayin, as we said the other day, Shua means to call for help or call for redemption. Anyway, verse 4. Speaking of Ephraim and Jehudah, verse 3. I knew Ephraim, Yahweh speaking, I knew Ephraim, and Israel was not hidden from me. I mean, Israel and Ephraim was the focus of Yahweh's attention. His people, he's watching every move they make, holding them accountable, giving them his words. But it says, for now you have committed harlotry, Ephraim, Israel has been defiled. Israel defiled itself. Israel is either referring to the northern 10 tribes, whose chief tribe was Ephraim, who was the son of Joseph, who was the son of Jacob, called Israel. or sometimes Israel is referred to as all the collection of the 12 tribes, but at the point with Jeroboam and Rehoboam, when the nation was divided into two, the north and the south, and then they became enemies and antagonistic to each other, that happened around 800 BC, 900 after the days of Solomon. So when it says Ephraim, I'm just saying that the word Ephraim literally is referring to the name of the northern kingdom. Like, for example, in the American Civil War, the North was called the Federalists and the South was called the Confederates. So federal is referring to the authority of the central government. Those are the Federalist troops. They wanted Washington, D.C. to rule with a voice of authority over the separate states. The Confederates, to the South, there was a confederation of the states where the states had autonomous rights to determine for themselves their liberties and their obligations to the assembly or the group. So one is central power, that's the federal, and the confederate is the, you might say, the autonomous state power, though they agreed to be related to each other. Just for what it's worth, I had made up a flag that was, you might have seen that before, this image here, a graphic, calling it the flag of the Confederated Tribes, or the Reconfederated Tribes of Israel. 12 stars, like the 12 tribes, 3 on each of the 4 sides, like the tribes of Israel encamped around the Mishkan. The menorah in the middle, Yeshua said, I'm the vine, you're the branches, and at the root is the word Yod-He Vav-He, and the big white X is the letter Tav, which literally means to be in covenant, and the stars are 7 points. The word 7 means to swear a vow, or under the common volitional oath to be his people. And the 4 colors, blue, purple, red, and white, the colors that are embroidered of the Mishkan, and the thin blue line around the Tav, like the Zitziot thread, to remind us that he's the guy who made these promises to us so that we'd keep them. So what I'm saying is that this word Ephraim, just so you know, because the word Ephraim shows up in verse 15, 14 and 15. Anyway, of Hosea 5, we'll get to that in a minute.
Just as an aside, Ephraim's only mentioned once in the New Testament. Very prophetic.
And what's it say? Do you remember?
Let me grab this real quick while I read it.
But I'm just bringing this people's attention because once the kingdom was split in half, north and south, Judah, or Yahuda, was referring to the southern kingdom that was composed of 2 tribes, Yehuda and Benjamin. Benjamin, son of my right hand. Yehuda and Benjamin were the 2 tribes in the southern empire. The northern kingdom, the northern empire, the northern kingdom was composed of the 10 tribes. And then Levi, Louis, another way to say it, was the kingdom of the Levites, the priest class, who had no inheritance. So there was 12 tribes, but Joseph was split into 2. He had 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, through an Egyptian wife. So Ephraim and Manasseh are, you might say, genetically half Egyptian. But because Levi did not have an inheritance of possession of land in Eretz Yisra'ěl, the 12 tribes were counting Ephraim and Manasseh as 2 separate tribes, so you still have 12. Anyway, the way they were camped around the tabernacle in the wilderness was 1 head tribe and then 2 other witness tribes, 1 on either side, as it were. So you had the total of 12 separated, 3 on each of the 4 sides, the way that flag is drawn. So if you looked at the flag of the modern state of Israel, it's white with a blue stripe top and bottom, and the 6-pointed star, that what's called the Star of David, or Solomon's seal, is in the middle. And yet, the study of where that star came from is a different matter. It's like the word David. Dalet is D, and DVD, the letter V is the letter Vav, which means to connect. So Dalet connected to Dalet is the word David, and it's actually the word Dod, or Dude, or Dodi means my beloved. So the word beloved is two dallets hooked together. So the six-pointed star, which is a triangle like this and a triangle like that, superimposed on each other. So technically you could look at the six-pointed Jewish star and say it means beloved. And Yahweh refers to Israel, the collection of all 12 tribes, as being beloved. He also refers to David as being his beloved. He also, when he said in the New Testament, when Yeshua was getting baptized, remember what the voice from heaven said? This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Well, the word beloved is David, and the word son is Ben. So when he said, this is my beloved Son, he said, this is Ben David. That's literally what he spoke. Hazah, Hine, behold this, Ben Dawid, in whom he is well pleased. Chafatz is one of the words for delight. There's a few other words.
That other reference to Ephraim, the only one in the New Testament, is in John 11 and 11:53. So from that day on, they plotted to kill him. Then the next verse, so Messiah therefore no longer went openly among the Yehudim, but went there into a country near the wilderness, to a city called Ephraim, and remained there with his taught ones.
A city called Ephraim.
Yeah, but I think that's very prophetic.
Huh. Okay, well anyway, just again making people aware of different Hebrew words and what they mean. So going back to Hosea chapter 5, verse 4. Ephraim has defiled itself. And then verse 4, they will not abandon their deeds to return to their Elohim, for a spirit of harlotries is in their midst. A spirit of harlotries. Now, does that mean there's one demonic fallen angel, like the spirit of Jezebel, the spirit of lies, the
Corporate spirit.
The what?
Corporate spirit.
The pork-eating spirit?
Corporate.
What does that mean, a corporate?
Just a all-enveloping spirit, I believe, is being spoken of.
So it means a mind or a disposition.
Yeah.
A spirit of harlotry. So, just for what it's worth, this is called Ruach Zanonim. Zayin Nun Vav Nun is that word for harlotry or adultery, but the word Ruach is translated spirit. But in Hebrew, the word Ruach also means a mind, a will, a disposition, an attitude, a propensity, a tolerance. It also is the word for courage. So is Ruach a spirit, like a particular entity, like a demon or an angel, or a personification, a character, a person of the angelic sort? Maybe. But it's also just this corporate attitude. The general disposition of the people was just, whatever, we're just going to do this stuff which is completely antagonistic and contrary to what Yahuwah, our Elohim, said he wanted us to do and what pleases him, and our job as human beings. Let's just go wayward. It's almost what you find in America today, or what you hear preached in popular music or displayed on popular movies. A spirit of harlotries is in their midst, maybe provoked by a devilish, satanic, demonic entity, but not necessarily. It could just be human tendency or what they decided to do in their own minds and hearts. And then it says, and Yahweh they do not know. So now here he's saying in Hosea 5 that even though they're called the people of God, the Hebrews, Ephraim, one of the 12 tribes, Yahweh said Ephraim was regarded as his firstborn son. And yet they do not know Yahweh, because they have made idols for themselves and given themselves over to what Yahweh said is an offense against him. Verse 5, the pride of Israel will be humbled before him. He's going to break down Ephraim. And Israel and Ephraim will stumble over their iniquity. As a man does, it will be measured back on him, and they're bringing it on themselves. Judah too will stumble with them. So Yahweh is linking Ephraim and Judah together. And even though you might say, in some way of thinking, the Jews despise Ephraim, and Ephraim despises the Jews, Yahweh has linked them together. And there's other verses where he talks about that he yoked the two of them together, that Ephraim is this young calf that loves to thresh. Oh, I want to pull that plow. And he's yoked them to Judah so that the two will harrow together. That's an agricultural term of pulling the plow. And that he gave them this attitude, like Yahweh invented the brain, the mind, the heart, the characteristics of each one of the animals, and that within oxen, they love what they do. The lion loves what it does. The dog, all heart, Caleb, loves what it does. Yahweh designed it that way, and he put within the mind and heart and character of Ephraim and Yehudah to be his people and do his stuff and plow that field. And so as we look at the letters Kaf and Lamed right here in the purple, Kaf is almost like a plowed field, and Lamed the hoe, Lamed the plowshare. There's something about teaching and learning his Torah which he put within us, this resonance of there's the satisfaction, there's the life, that's what we should be doing, and everything starts to work. And when we go contrary to that, preaching contrary, encouraging otherwise, being bad priests, not a Cohen, it's all about this subject when it comes to Ephraim and Yehudah. They will stumble over their iniquity, Judah too will stumble with them. Then it says, verse 6, with their sheep and with their cattle, they will go to seek Yahweh, but they will not find him. He has withdrawn from them. What? Yahweh withdrawn from them? I thought that he would never leave us. Standing on the promise. There was Lily Fraser. She wrote this beautiful song back in the days we were at the hiding place in Los Angeles with Henry Catrona. A guy named Nick is the one who read that song. I will not fear the terror by night, nor the arrow that flies by day. For you have commanded your angels on high to guard me in all my ways. Under the shadow of his wings, abiding in the shelter they bring. Day by day I find refuge for my soul under the shadow of your wings. And Lily wrote a song, standing on the promise that you will never leave me. Beautiful songs of worship. But Yahweh said, he has withdrawn from his people. Verse 7, they betrayed Yahweh, for they begot alien children. Now a month will devour them. A month? 30 days of the year? What? When you read something like this in the scripture that kicks your head around, that makes no sense, that means there's something written in the Hebrew that the English translators just aren't telling you, I can't figure out. So then this particular text has an asterisk. With their sheep and their cattle, they will go to seek Yahweh. Why would you bring your sheep and your cattle? You might bring your sons and daughters, maybe your aunts and uncles, okay, let's see. This has an asterisk. So I go here to verse 6, and it says, this refers to sacrificial animals. Oh, okay. Maybe the rabbis are right. Pick up their sacrificial animals and say, look at Yahweh loves it when we sacrifice animals. Let's just get a bunch of sheep and cattle and let's go seek him. How do you seek him? Do you go to the temple? You go to the tabernacle? You go to the place of the altar? I mean, what does this mean? They're going to go seek Yahweh, but he is withdrawn from them. And then the other one says, because, this is the other asterisk reference, because they begot Gentile children through intermarriage, their downfall will come in the month of Av. The month of Av? That's what Rashi says. Now, this is a sage, a wise rabbi, and he says that's what this verse means. But what I have found is that if you actually write these words in Hebrew, and look at them letter by letter, then you'll see other things. So this is what I see for verse 6. With their sheep and their cattle they will go seek Yahweh, but they will not find, because he has withdrawn from them. The word sheep is Zadi Aleph Nun. So this word is spelled Bet Zadi Aleph Nun Mem. But the word Zadi Aleph, the root of that word means one who is ejected. Can mean taken into exile, kicked out of the land as a refugee. And then the word for cattle is Bet Kuf Resh. That's the word boker, which means morning. It means cattle. It means one who plows, but it also means an explorer. One who goes out in strength, like Lewis and Clark, paid for by the government to go out and find a way through the wilderness. So I could read this same word with their sheep and with their cattle. I could read that as whether they are in the condition of refugees and exiles, or they're in the condition of explorers and pioneers. Go search Bakash, et Yahweh, velo I matzah, and not, that word matzah, like this is the week of matzah, unleavened bread, it means he will find out how to do something. They will go seek and they will not find. And then this word het lamed zadi, chalak, means, that's where it says he is withdrawn, but it also means to pull out. Now it can mean to reach your hand in and pull out to rescue. It's the same exact word, but it also means to pull out or withdraw. But it also means gird for war. To impose a draft on a country and says, I'm going to reach in and grab these high school students and say, go to boot camp and learn war, so we're going to throw you over into Vietnam or someplace like that, like what happened in the 70s. It's that same word. And then this word mem he mem means away from them or against them. So this same sentence could be read, Yahweh will withdraw from them so that they cannot find him. Or it means Yahweh will withdraw and then gird himself for war against them. So, standing on the promise that you will never leave me is one thing, but here there's a promise out of Yahweh's own mouth that he's going to withdraw, hide, and actually set himself as a warrior, as a whole army. This word Yahweh is a vote, this army of legions against his people to attack them, kill them, and chop them up into little pieces. And when I say chop up into little pieces, it's because the first word of Hosea 4:6, nadamu, that's what that means. And then here we're going to jump ahead a few verses and go to verses 14 and 15. Let's go back up to 13. Let's go back up to 12. Yahweh speaking, I will be like a moth to Ephraim, like rot to the house of Judah. That's like cancer. That's like rust. He's going to just sit there and corrode them and ruin them. Instead of being like a piece of hardened steel or a nice piece of tapestry, it's going to be shredded and become worthlessly nothing. Verse 13, Ephraim saw his ailment and Judah his wound. And Ephraim went to Assyria and Judah sent tribute to the king of Jareb. Instead of turning to Yahweh, they went to their alien nations. It's like, oh, let's turn to Russia and China and Korea and Brazil, and let's turn to England and France to see if we can find some help. Why don't we turn to Yahuwah? Well, that's why we're making these videos. This is how we turn to Yahuwah. Go back to his words. We'll get right into that when we get into a couple more chapters here of Hosea. Verse 14, for I am like a lion to Ephraim and like a lion's whelp to the house of Judah. As for me, I will mangle and I will then go away. I will carry off and no one will rescue. Verse 15, I will go. This is Yahweh speaking. I will go. I will return to my place until they will acknowledge their guilt and seek my face. In their distress, they will seek me. Now, for us to stand on the promise that Yahweh will never leave us, and for us to say, claim Psalm 91, under the cover of his wings, he is saying, I will remove those wings, I will fly away, you can't find me, and not only that, I will be your enemy, vicious, lying, your adversary, your Satan, ripping you to pieces, shredding you, demolishing you. Annihilating you, Ephraim and Yehudah. Don't think you're so big that you're the apple of my eye. I will close my eyes and you'll never find me. That's what he's saying. But there's a remedy. He says here, let's look a little closer at Hosea 5:14 and 16. So then and then there's this word kaf shin chet lamed, and that word is cascade or waterfall or roar or to pull through a needle. That's the same word that we bumped into the other day. And it's like Yahweh says, what? You think you're so big and tough, and I'm going to pull you through the eye of a needle, only saving one little shred. It's like rust, cankerous cancer, leaving only a couple bits left that you can then, like that video we did about the restoration of the Rolls-Royce a couple years ago. You find this rusty piece of metal, and you can restore it, Chodesh, and make it like renewed, like the full moon. He can save one cell and turn it back into the whole being. But there's pictures in this Hebrew that are quite something. La Ephraim means regarding Ephraim, but the word Epher as in Ephraim, also means ashes and dust. If there's nothing left but dust, Yahweh can recover it and turn it back into good as new. Like a young lion that powerful wants to tear things apart unto the house of Yehuda, then it says ani, that's the word I am, aleph nun yod. It's translated me. Like I said, there's 3 different words translated I am. It's Anoki, the first word found in Exodus 20, at the beginning of the 10 Commandments. This word Ani, where he says Ani Yahweh, like an emperor surrounded by his fleet. And then there's the word Ehyeh, where he says Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, I am that I am, in Exodus chapter 3 at the burning bush incident. And then here's this word Aleph, Tet, Resh, Pei, Teref, where it means literally torn into pieces, plucked, unfit for food, mixed, confused, defective. It's like finding roadkill. It's like finding an animal that's been torn up by jackals and hyenas. Literally, there's this mouth there, and it literally, Aleph Tet Resh, means closed and shut. So Yahweh says that this Aleph Tet Resh, closed and shut, then the letter Pei, mouth, if you break up the word like that, it means he's going to let his mouth, the words of his mouth, be completely unfit for food, indeterminable, not understandable. The next word, ve'alak, ve'vav aleph lamed kaf, which means toward you, aleph shin hey, aleph shin aleph. The words shin aleph and shin vav aleph goes back to that commandment where he says, do not take the name of Yahweh your Elohim in vain, for Yahweh will not hold him guiltless who lifts up his name in vain. So to lift up and is nun shin, to take something in vain is not necessarily to say, God damn it, that's not taking him his name in vain. That's not his name, and that's not the meaning of the word vain. Like you're just exasperated and you express some profanity. But the word vain literally is shin aleph and shin vav aleph. Sounds like shin ayin, shua or shah, but this is she. And it literally means empty, void. It's that word that we saw earlier where it meant abhorred, loathsome, contemptible, or vain or foolish, or empty, synonymous with aleph samik and bet lamed. Shin aleph means to bring to nothing. Yahweh says, do not bring his name to nothing, for he will not hold that man guiltless. In other words, he's going to pay kuf dalet. He's going to fakad. He's going to visit with what we were entrusted with and hold us responsible and say, what have you done with it? All this information about the meaning of these words and letters, the access to the covenant, the access to the scriptures, the access to understanding who the real Mashiach is, the access that we have been given to see Yahuwah's face on display in these letters, we are now responsible for as Kohanim and as Melachim to walk in these ways and to make them clearly, pleasantly as parables, metaphors, so that everybody else can join league with us as Ayin Mem, the of Yahuwah. And if we are irresponsible with this, we have got trouble, hell to pay, as they say. This says, toward you, I will be, Aleph, Shin, Aleph, I will be as empty as you consider me. There's the reference of reciprocal mirroring. And nothing, va'ain, Aleph, Yod, Nun, where we get the word ain't, which means doesn't exist, mem, zadi, yod, lamed. Well, mem, zadi, yod, lamed means savior or lifeguard. He says, I'm going to disappear, hide from you, close my mouth, and leave you with no lifeguard, no savior. He is leaving us. So that standing on the promise that you will never leave me, that's not the promise that he gave. Now Yeshua did say, I will never leave you or forsake you. But is that all there is to the story? He's telling us all through the Torah that if we turn our back on him, he disappears. Why? I've said before, if you see a big ugly face in the mirror, how do you get rid of that big ugly face? How do you get rid of the monster? How do you get rid of your enemy? If he says the enemy coming at you is your own finger approaching a mirror until it touches itself, how do you get rid of that big ugly face? Smile. Suddenly, the face in the mirror changes. If Yahweh says, I'm not going to leave you, but when you turn your back on me, he's gone. He's gone. But he does say, I'm going to go away and hide, and you will not find me until, that's the word ayin dalet, until, that's verse 15, toward you I will return, Aleph, Shin, Vav, Bet, Hey, toward my place. What do you mean? I will return toward you? It all depends on how you translate this words. Regarding my aspect of instructing you, Aleph, Lamed, Kaf, regarding my disposition toward you, I'm going to return to my place. Makomi. Kumi. That's kumi, as in kumi ori, the same word. Like I said, the letter kuf means to arise. It also has to do with placing down. So my place is the place where I reside, the place where I can be found, the place until, that's a witness. Asher Yod Aleph Shin Mem. That means guilty offense, the one who is blamed for their sin. It means acknowledging or admitting or confirming. Whoever will acknowledge the offense and seek, Bet Kuf Shin, my face, Peinun Yod. Bet Zadi Resh means strength, inaccessible or enclose, Lahem to them, and then the last word here, Yod Shin Het Resh Nun Nun Yod. Shin Het Resh means literally rise early and seek diligently. As soon as you say this word shachar, means to rise early, seek diligently. It also means black. It means the black of night, but it also means the dawning of the day. And all of a sudden, I, having read the New Testament, realized, hey, when Yeshua rose from the dead on the third day, the early morning of the third day, no, they went to seek him on the early morning of the third day. He was already risen. If he was crucified Wednesday night, he would rose Saturday night. It wasn't Friday night to Sunday morning. Anyway, the point is, they rose early and went to seek him. There was a reason for that. That's a part of the story, because they were waiting until the Shabbat was over, and then they got up to search for him, to go out and find, not knowing that he rose, they went to the tomb early, seeking early. That's the word shachar. Seek, it means, Shin Het Resh, to seek diligently and rise early. That means at the first opportunity. Well, as we've discussed, the northern kingdom, Ephraim, was taken into captivity by Assyria in 721 BC, depending on when you count the calendar. Which month of the year, I don't know. Some people say 722, but depending on how you count the calendar. But 721, and according to Leviticus 26, 390 in Ezekiel 4, 390-day curse, day for a year, times 7, Leviticus 26, 2,730 years from 721 to BC, brings us to 2010. So the curse imposed on the northern kingdom of Israel would have been concluded as of 2010, this is 2020, 10 years ago, to rise early and seek diligently, going back to the words that he withheld to see his face in these letters. That's why, ever since 2010, the The chart that we made with the columns of the colors explaining the meanings of the letters keyed to the Greek and the Hebrew, and the pictographs in the English, the flame letters, the number value, all this has been made available since 2005. Since 2004, actually. 2010 made the chart, 2011 the Erectology class, and here it is 2020. The sun's starting to rise. But to get up right out of the gate of when that curse was broken and make this stuff available is what we're doing. So what I'm saying is, here we're reading in Hosea chapter 5, and it's like, boy, that was written back around 600 BC or so, and it's like, where is it for and who's it talking to? And I'm suggesting it's for us today, and it's here now. And then if we get right in, that's the last verse of chapter 5. I will go, Yahweh speaking, I will return to my place. His place, he hid himself in these words and letters. Until they were, he's not necessarily just saying going off to some corner of heaven. Until they will acknowledge their guilt and seek my face in their distress, they will seek me. The world is in a place of distress this week, this month, this season of Aviv with the coronavirus. This is very pertinent. I will go to my place until they will acknowledge their guilt. Why? Because if we acknowledge our guilt, seek his face, realize that we've inherited vain doctrines of making his name vain, empty, worthless, void. Do you know what his name is? Do you know he has a name? Really? How come the church has never mentioned his name for almost 2,000 years now? His name, Yod-He-Vav-He, Yahweh. People pronounce it differently, or Ehyeh. You ever hear those words from the church? Did they make his name void? Do you know that his name also means fame, renown, and reputation? That he claimed that the seventh-day Sabbath was the indicator of his reputation of inventing, building, creating the world in 6 days and resting on the seventh? And the church, thank you, Mr. Constantine, intentionally changed it to prove that they were separated from the Yahudim, the Jews who did acknowledge him, and that the only denomination, you might say, that regarded the seventh-day Sabbath is the Seventh-day Adventists and the, what was that other group? Down in L.A., Ambassador College.
The which college?
They had Ambassador College down in Pasadena.
Armstrong's group?
Yeah. Anyway, the point is, I'm not validating the rest of their doctrines, but at least they acknowledge the Moedim of Leviticus 23. The rest of the Christian church hasn't. Why not? Because they brought his Shem to Shin Aleph. And Yahweh, as a mirror, as a reciprocal, said, okay, you make my stuff Shin Aleph, I'm Shin Aleph, goodbye, I'm hiding. Why will he reappear when we look for his stuff? Because that's where he is, in these words, in these letters, in this Torah. You want to seek his face? How many times has the Christian church sung, show me your face, I want to see you clearly? Look in his words of Hebrew. How many times did I sing that song and never once was told to look at his words? Never once! That's remedied at this point. Words fulfilled in your hearing. Look at his words. Toward you I will return when you acknowledge and seek my face with strength to them who will rise early and seek diligently. And then we get into chapter 6, verse 1. Certainly returning toward Yahweh, just as he tore them apart as a furious lion, ripping to make food unfit. Foreclosure, seizure, torn prey, that word teref. Certainly he will heal us. His hand that smacked us soundly, Yakah, Makkah, he will set at liberty. That same hand of his that came crashing down on Ephraim, Yehudah because of the way they were responding to these words, that same hand will set us free. The same hand which strangled Ephraim and Yehudah till barely a dust particle is left, that same hand will free and heal and restore. Verse 2, he will give us life Then there's this word mem, yod, mem. Daily. Mayim is water, from waters, like refreshing waters. It's translated after 2 days because the word day is yom and the word im is days, but this has a prefix mem. So what do you make of this word? Aqueous, watery. He says, Yeshua talked about water and he says, to he who thirsts, to he who is parched for thirst, he gives freely the waters of life. One drop of water becomes a geyser gushing. So this picture of the pictographs of Mem, one little drop of water falling into the pool, whoosh, splashes up like a geyser. From out of his inner being will come rivers of life. Food for the hungry. Rivers of life for the thirsty. Then it says, on the third day, he will revive us. He will raise us. There's that word kum again. He will yod kuf mem nun vav. Nun vav is the suffix meaning us. And comfort, nun het. That's the word nach, as in Noach, as in the word Noah, Noah, the guy that built the ark. That's the same verb. He will comfort us. He will impart life. Nun het yod he. Then it says lifnei. Lamed Penun Yod Vav, before him, according to his face, according to his kind. That word Penun is not only face, but it's the life that jumps out of the mouth, and it means the variety, type, species, sort, kind, to categorize. It's according to the categorization of the meaning of the letters. That what came out of his mouth, according to the structure of his words. That's another way to read this. But the interesting thing about that third day, on the third day he will raise us up. On the third day he will revive us. Well, the word for third is shalish here. Shin lamed yod shin. But the word is spelled here, hey, shin lamed yod shin yod. So the word hey is typically a prefix meaning the yod suffix means my. But if you look it up in the dictionary, it's like, okay, shalish means three. Like a triangle, three-cornered tricorn hat. But it's also like that's the Illuminati, the third eye. Is it? Is it the third eye? Why do they have an eyeball in the midst of a triangle? Well, the dalet is drawn as a triangle, and the ayin is drawn as an eye. So a dalet and an angle, well, that dalet ayin is the word knowledge. The word ayin dalet, the eyeball with the triangle, is the word for witness and testimony, or it's the word until. We just read, until they will acknowledge their guilt, he will take away the knowledge of his covenant and of understanding his words. So we could look at this motif of the triangle and the eyeball and go, ooh, that's the illuminated ones, the Illuminati, the guys that want to take over the world and that own all the banks and the governments and the Hollywood movies and the music industry. It's like, wait a minute. It has nothing to do with those guys. I don't care about those guys. They can make believe all the stories they want, but the ayin and the dalet of Yahweh is until you validate that we have offended him, we have had idols, we've gone after nothings and become nothing. That's a quote from a few different verses. Then he's going to hide the knowledge of understanding what his words mean and his face from us, and we're on our own with nothing, no help, no rescue, no fortress, no strength, no presence of him to defend us. And that exact same word, hey shin lamed yod shin, if you look at it in the dictionary, it means lowering a chain, like dropping an anchor, or depositary, or he deposited me bound and chained, and then he will raise me up and impart life. That's another way to read that. So when it says on the third day, does it mean Yeshua raised on the third day? Yeshua said he would raise up like Jonah after 3 days and 3 nights. Wednesday night, Thursday morning. Thursday night, Friday morning. Friday night, Saturday morning, 3 days and 3 nights, so he rises Saturday night. Not Sunday morning. Wasn't put to death Friday night. It's wrong. Wrong counting. How can we get 3 days and 3 nights so wrong? Or them crazy Jews, you know, I hairtail them. They count any part of a day. So if he was put to death 1 second or 1 minute, still on Friday, well, that's counted as all day. And Sunday morning, well, it was 1 second or 1 moment of Sunday morning, that counts as all day. So there's 3 days. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, well, what happened to the 3 nights? Yeshua said, 3 days and 3 nights. Sorry. Can't get it Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Doesn't work. Somebody's been lying. Somebody's been intentionally corrupting the meaning of these words. You want to come back to understanding the words? You want to have the door open to understanding the words? That's Dalet Ayin. That's knowledge. That's Ayin Dalet, understanding the door. Yeshua claimed to be the door. Listen to his words and you'll understand these words. Then verse 3. Nun Dalet Ayin Hey. Strive. That's the letter Nun as the prefix. Strive to know. You want to know the truth? You're going to have to put some personal effort into this. Nun, Resh Dalet Pei Hey. Resh Dalet Pei means pursue, chase, flow rapidly, follow eagerly, ardently. It's also the word for persecution and oppression. If you're going to persecute somebody, like the pogroms, like the Holocaust, the Germans going after the Jews, the Ashkenazi, there in Eastern Europe during the 1940s, man, they hunted them down like a vengeance. Do you have any such zeal for finding out what these words mean? These words of Hebrew in the Torah, Yahweh's own personal words, and he chose the Hebrew language because it was the clearest, most accurate, most pristine, unaffected, adulterated by human appendage. And we don't even care, we don't even know. And yet this word says, strive to know, follow eagerly, pursue, Lamed Dalet Ayin Tav, the knowing of Yahweh, et Yahuwah. Hosea 6, verse 3. If you want to remedy him hiding his face and going away, this is the remedy. Then it's like the Shin Chet Resh, like the Shachar, like when it's pitch black dark and then the sun starts to emerge and then it gets stronger and stronger until it bokers over the horizon and bursts into the day. That's the picture. Ka Shachar. Then it's Nun, Kaf Vav Nun. True words, correction, accuracy, prepare, compare, revise the text. Why this word Nakon, Nun Kaf Vav Nun, Kaf Nun, like the word in Cohen, it's a similar word. It's synonymous with the word Ayin Resh Kaf, which is Eric, which is the root of Erictology. So he's telling us right here, develop the Erictology study. Mem Vav Zadi Aleph Vav. That means find out. That's the root of the word matzah. It also means ejected or publish or export. He's telling us to seek diligently, pursue this like you're a hound dog on a raccoon, and chase it down, grab the truth, and export it and publish it like a blossom in the spring. And then it says, he will, Yod Bet Vav Aleph, he will import. When we export, publish the truth, he will import. And then it says, Kaf Gimel Shin Mem, Gasham, rain, like rain, tangible reality, materialize the essence, the fruit, the juice, the pulp. That's basar. That's also the word translated gospel and good news for us. Lamed Nun Vav Lenu. Yavo Kagasham Lenu. He will bring in and import to us from the storehouses of the heavens. We are not subject to the limited resources on the face of the earth. He will abundantly import and materialize more than what we can even see. And then it says, like Mem Lamed Kuf Vav Shin, like eclipse, stricken, smitten, like he struck us. But the word Mem Lamed Kuf Vav Shin also means latter rain and spring rains. We just had last night pounding hail, floods of rain. Here it is, the month of Aviv. Like those spring rains, he is going to restore, recover, and bring into us. And then this word vav yod resh hey, which means, from the root resh aleph hey, exhibit, put on exhibition, teach, instruct, point out, and show, which is the root for the word Torah. Then there's the word earth, aleph resh zadi, but the prefix letter aleph means I am or I will, and resh zadi is where we get the word rats or rats, which means to run like rats. I will run this course that he puts on display, this gamut of aleph to tav, which is the same one Mashiach Yeshua ran. Literally, Yeshua said, I'm going to come down and run this course. That's the word eretz, earth. So why did he call it earth? Why did Yahuwah, the creator of heaven and earth, call this place eretz, aleph resh zadi? Because the word eretz means, I will run this course, this gamut, this course from aleph to tav. He came down to run this. Then the question is, who is he that we should acknowledge him? Should we worship him as deity, as God, as Elohim, as our champion, as our savior, as our redeemer, as our model? He was half human. Was he half human? Was he in human form? He said we should worship a form with no visage, no human face. Boy, that's trouble. What do we do with him? Well, that's another video. Anyway, there's more great stuff in Hosea 7:13 and chapter 8, 1 through 4, 8, 12, Hosea 7, 8 through 16. Should we do another video?
Sure, we can do that.
Are people even listening to these things?
I don't know. I doubt it.
Well, they're fun to make. At least it's nice having his words in our mouth, so we'll make another one. I don't want to burden people with too many things.
Let's have a Corona break.
A Corona break. Is there yeast in that? Should we be drinking that or not?
Yeah, you got a point.
I don't know. Ask a rabbi, they'll tell you.
Yeah. All right, brother.
Shalom.